Good evening, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives. And tonight we're doing a special show just to share the things we gained when myself and my wife, drummer, went down to Norfolk, Virginia to visit the MacArthur Memorial about 2 weeks ago. And we met with the archivist there, Mr. James Zobel, who showed us through the entire archives that related to the USS Nashville. And it's something that I found out not too long ago, maybe about 2 months ago. I became aware that in the MacArthur Memorial in Norfolk, Virginia, there is a inside of that a kind of a memorial to the USS Nashville, its crew, and the officers and men and uh, the memorabilia of the people who served on Nashville was collected there, and in fact, that's where they had gatherings on an annual basis until till to its there. If there are any survivors now, I'm sure they're probably about 100 years old. Well, anyway, Mr. Zobel was very kind with his time with us and gave us a full tour, not only of the Nashville stuff, but also the MacArthur Museum. And I can certainly recommend that you check it out if you want to see something interesting in Norfolk, Virginia. So I want to thank Andy DeBala for a hard day's work here at Screaming Osprey's studio here on Mystery Island. We've had a lot of physical work to do, moving things around and refiling things, and it's been great to have Andy here. So, well, we've also been working hard to put together a number of different slides and slide packages for you tonight. So let's get started, Andy. Why don't we start off with the first slide? So these are probably not in the best order, but what you see here is a photograph taken by me of a scale model of the USS Nashville made by one of the crew that lives in the Norfolk area. And he built that model and donated it to the MacArthur Memorial Museum. So I'll have some better pictures of that later. But here on the side of the ship, you can see the gun turrets, which were hit by the kamikaze, those smaller ones in the middle of the three. And the way Mr. Zobel tells the story, I think, is the best way for you to learn it. So I'll wait until we play a little clip of him as he describes the actual kamikaze hit and the aftermath. Okay. Well, I took a lot of pictures of newspaper clippings that people had saved. The Nashville banner, the Nashville, Tennessee, kept an eye on the cruiser Nashville all through the war. There's a quote from Douglas MacArthur on the Nashville carried me in many amphibious operations. She proved herself a gallant ship under a gallant captain and officers, served by a gallant crew. May she be preserved safely to the end. And he says that on July 20th, 1945. Um, I'll go back to that article there. I think, let's see. Oh, there's just some highlights of the crew. It was of the ship. Okay, let's just go through that. It was ordered in 1933, along with the other Brooklyn class cruisers built at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Keel laid in 1935, launched in 37, commissioned in 38, and used as a part of a screen force for the Jimmy Doolittle raid in April of 1942. Um, May of 44 gets into action in the South Pacific, bombing the island of Biak, bombed by Japanese planes off Biak. Then the invasion of the Philippines, the suicide kamikaze attack on December 13th, 1944. And then this is, I think, the announcement that it's getting back into the fight on June 20th after having been repaired from the damage from the kamikaze. Okay. I think that's MacArthur there. Yes. The cruiser Nashville brings General MacArthur back to the Philippines. And you can see those gun turrets up there that we showed you earlier on the model. Let's see, why did I pick this one? Okay, well, I just picked a few letters that people wrote in. I don't remember why I picked that one. Here is a, a page of a diary that people put together to show what happened on what particular days. And so I actually took photos of the entire diary, but I just offer you these one or two of these so you can see an example of what the ship did.
I believe this is a timeline of what the ship went through, going through the Pacific.
Yeah, it's a timeline.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately not a great photograph of a photograph by me, but it's a great angle of the ship, and the original photograph is really a lot more impressive than that. So sorry about that fuzziness. Captain Spanicle welcoming General MacArthur on his return to the ship after visiting his men on Morotai, approximately September 8, 1944. This is the damage to the ship that was caused by a bomb on a different occasion. If you show the little tag at the bottom, Andy, I could read when that happened. Um, okay, June 4th, 1944. This was not a kamikaze. This was an actual bomb. And the story of that is related in the book Humble Heroes by Bustin. And it seems that there was a cook that was kind of on semi duty to during an air raid. He was laying on his back underneath an anti-aircraft gun and saw this. I guess it was a dive bomber heading toward the Nashville, and was able to fire the anti-aircraft gun at the descending plane to steer it off course, and so that the bomb didn't actually hit the ship, but it hit right next to the ship, as you can see. They're repairing that damage in that photograph. That was June of 1944. Yeah, let's go on. Okay, this is a picture from another ship of the Nashville as it got hit by the kamikaze. December 13th, 1944. And let's see.
Same ship.
Yeah, same thing. Interesting to see all that flak, all those puffs of flak in the air. This is the fire hoses out there. This is after or at the end of the cleanup and the extinguishing of the fires.
18 died and 15 severely injured.
Oh, this is something else. This is an explosion that happened in turret number 3. This is not the kamikaze. This is on June 14th, 1944. Just shows you that it's dangerous out there even without kamikazes flying around. And let's see that is the damage to the ship from the kamikaze on one side.
Trying to get over it, won't let me.
This is the remains of the kamikaze plane. You can see a man being carried on a stretcher in the middle of that picture. Transfer of wounded to the receiving ship at sea. Corpsmen giving aid to the wounded from the kamikaze attack. Well, you know, those are the departed. 133 men died. Jap plane kills 133 on MacArthur ship. I think that's the San Francisco paper, if I recall. There's a number of people just send in newspaper articles and also personal stories. It's quite a place to visit. Nope, go back. Let's pick up that picture there. This is a picture of the officers, I believe, on the ship, the Marines as well as these Navy officers. And Andy, I wonder if you can find my father on this. Oh, how'd you do that?
Maybe because we talked about it beforehand.
Well, there's Daddy. And there's me with the archivist Jim Zobel at the entrance to the MacArthur Museum exhibits itself. You can see on the left his West Point uniform and the beginning of a very interesting exhibit. Goes around and up a floor, across, back down again, and a whole lot of interesting display cases. So let's, I just picked out a few of the interesting ones. This is a huge map of which I was only able to take a picture of, this much of it. And this, of course, is the important part where my father has joined the ship at New Guinea. You can see, if you remember, we mentioned the island of Biak. That's just a little bit, um, see the parrot's beak, Andy, at the far left, what they call the Fogelkop, where we talked about that gold being found there. Anyway, the island of Biak is in that bay just to the right of the beak.
Is it labeled?
Yeah, but it's a little hard to see. It's not important. But
Oh,
anyway,
right here.
yeah, there it is. Well, the fighting of the Nashville is described on the next slide, so let's go ahead to that one. And you can see this is where this is where the island, what they called the island hopping campaign, was really what an amphibious navy. It was all about making amphibious landings, one after another, and then bypassing the Japanese so that you could get past them and cut off their supplies, and that way they have to surrender. Well, that's the New Guinea island, and I'm going to be learning a lot more about the individual days and things as we go through the photographs that my father provided to me when when we were little kids, a stack of photographs from the Nashville, and we'll get to those after we finish this particular slide deck. Well, people are interested in MacArthur's Freemasonry, and they put it right up front in the museum. A couple of exhibits related to that. Level 33 ring and pin. Scottish Rite. His father was Scottish Rite also in Little Rock, Arkansas. But MacArthur's joined it in the Philippines. There you see it's the Manila Lodge, number 1. Free and accepted Masons. There he is. And that is what I believe that's a Shriner cap, a Shriner hat. So that's a very high level Mason, and it's the same hat that J. Edgar Hoover can be seen wearing. This is the Knight's Cross, the Knight Grand Cross of the Order of the Bath. So this is like the highest British order that can be awarded by the King, Queen of England. There's a whole rack of orders and things, from crosses in French and Belgian and African and, you know, Japanese. I mean, there's just so many of these that you either photograph them all or you just pick one to stand out for the rest of them. And this one was the one I picked. Now, these are pictures the drummer took, a better picture of the same model. Very nice. And there I am with that model. Okay, and that's the end.
You ready to go to these two?
Yeah, yeah. After the museum, we of course took a walk through town, and I did not know there was a great big battleship there. It's just right down at the end of a street. So we, of course, walked up to that. That is the USS Wisconsin, and it in itself is worth a trip to Norfolk just to see it. It's huge.
That's the end of that. So
All right, let's play that little video that's attached to that, if you have that one there.
you want the YouTube or the?
No, the ones I made. There's two little videos that I made.
We'll go to number 1 first.
Yeah. That's the memorial there. So here we are at the MacArthur Memorial. Talk about an imposing structure. It used to be the City Hall of Norfolk, Virginia, and we are here right in the center of Norfolk. This is now the MacArthur Memorial, and it was by General MacArthur's own choice that this is where his principal archives are, and he and his wife are interred here inside under the dome inside of that magnificent building. Now, we're walking out into the courtyard here because there's some more buildings to see. This is a beautiful visitor center with a gift shop, but also a theater, and in there 2 floors of MacArthur exhibits, taking all the way back from his father's day right straight through the end of his career.
Was that the same one? I clicked.
This is an archive not only of MacArthur himself, but also of the USS Nashville's crew and officers who sent memorabilia here. And so without going inside, I just wanted you to see that this is where all of that great archives is kept. And that's a great facility. It's like a really nice library. It's stacked from floor to ceiling with books of historical and military value. And again, I really do appreciate the help that we got from James Zobel there. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and play the video that James Zobel made for the MacArthur Memorial. This is only published in October of last year, so it's fairly new, and I think you'll get a sense of how well MacArthur knew and loved the ship. on which my father spent 22 months.
Now at the 76th anniversary of the Leyte landing, October 20th of 1944. And if you want to know about the landings, look at the video that we did a few months back. It's on our MacArthur Memorial channel on YouTube. But today we'll be talking about the illustrious service of the crew and ship USS Nashville. Now, the Nashville was the light cruiser that took MacArthur back to the Philippines in October 20th of 1944, and that's MacArthur on the ship right there. This was a ship that MacArthur used on many landings in World War II, and it kind of created this connection between MacArthur and the ship's crew of the USS Nashville. They used to come here many times over the years. They would have their reunions here, and they donated many materials that you can find throughout the MacArthur Memorial. Unfortunately, most of them are gone now, and we're just left with basically a handful of those men that served so valiantly on the Nashville. Now, the Nashville was a Brooklyn-class cruiser of 1933-1934. The keel was laid down in Camden, New Jersey in 1935. And it was in 1937 in October that the ship was launched there at Camden. And here you can see a picture of it moving off the dock. It was sponsored by Ann and Mildred Stallman. Now, these were both sisters. They were both from Nashville, and they were chosen to come and christen the ship when it was launched there in 1937. Now, in August 38, the Nashville made its first big cruise, and that went to Europe. And the first stop was in Cherbourg in France. And you can see on this piece of memorabilia from that trip, this was made up from for the sailors that was like their shellback, their initial cruise that was going over to France. And you can see the stamp on the back of this that shows that this was printed there in Cherbourg. Now, in April of 39, the second cruise that the ship made had some very important people on it. And this was General George C. Marshall and Admiral Ernest King. These were the two gentlemen that would run the Army and Navy in World War II. But in 1939, the Nashville took them down to Brazil, where they had a Pan-American conference on defense, because the war was just about to start in Europe at this time. And so there was a lot of different kind of planning going on throughout the Americas. When the ship gets back, it drops off King and Marshall at Annapolis, Maryland, and then it makes its way for the Panama Canal. It's going to traverse the canal and head to Pearl Harbor, where it will be part of the Pacific Fleet for the next 2 years. It'll do activities over there until about May of 1941, when it got these secret orders to then proceed back through the Panama Canal, back to the East Coast, and it will be in the Atlantic Fleet. And the Nashville is going to, at this time, in mid-1941 up until the winter, it's going to be doing ferrying duty, because they're taking U.S. Marines to Iceland. They're very worried about the Germans trying to make a move on this very important position, strategical position in the middle of the North Atlantic. Now, the ship is doing these kind of activities in December of 1941 when Pearl Harbor attack happens. And once that happens, the ship is then going to go back to the Pacific. Now, in March of 1942, the Nashville gets its orders. It's going to go back again through the Panama Canal, but this time it's escorting the USS Hornet aircraft carrier. Once it gets into the Pacific, it meets up with Admiral William F. Halsey's task force with the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise. And the Enterprise and the Hornet are what the ships that are going to pull off the Doolittle raid in April of 1942. American Army General Jimmy Doolittle put together this force of Army bombers that was then positioned on aircraft carriers and was sent in to strike Tokyo in April of 1942. And the Nashville would serve as an escort for this carrier force, this secret carrier force that went to do this job. You can see the Nashville right here off the port side of the USS Hornet. You can see all of Doolittle's B-25s on there, right there. Now, this ship, the Nashville, was used as a screening force, and it went in advance of the aircraft carriers, and that's where it met the Japanese patrol ships that these carrier airplanes and then the Nashville would have to sink. But the thing is that those Japanese ships, they knew had already sent word back to Tokyo that they'd run into an American force, so they had to launch that Doolittle raid early. Now, after this Doolittle raid, the Nashville goes into service where it will serve up in the Aleutian Islands. It'll come back down to the South Pacific. It'll serve in the Guadalcanal as well as the New Georgia campaigns. And then in October of 43, it's going to do bombardment missions of Wake Island. And it's not until November of 1943 that the Nashville comes to be part of MacArthur's 7th Fleet in the Southwest Pacific area. Then it gears up for what will be the landings of the 1st Marine Division at Cape Gloucester in December of 43. The Marines will take this island, which is on New Britain. And then in February of 44, the Nashville will be as part of the bombardment force with the 1st Cavalry Division that invades the Admiralty Islands, and they take Los Negros and Manus Island. It's after that that MacArthur chooses the Nashville to be his command ship for the invasions of Hollandia and Atape. And here you can see MacArthur on the ships during those during this period. And here you can see him where he's boarding on an LCVP and heading towards Atape, the invasion point there. And you can see the Nashville sitting right behind it. Now, in May of 1944, the Nashville was again on an escort run for the Biak invasions, and there it got damaged by a Japanese bomb that was dropped from a plane. You can see the damage right on the side here. Goes back into dry dock. They fix it up real quick, and then it comes back to be part of the Morotai invasion. And there again, it'll serve as the command ship of MacArthur for this Morotai invasion in September of 1944. And here you can see a picture of MacArthur. He's on the deck of the ship with Major General Charles Hall. He's the commander of the 10th Corps that goes in there into Morotai. It was from the communication center of the Nashville that MacArthur first learned that he was going to be given the go-ahead for the return to the Philippines. The Joint Chiefs of Staff had decided on making the move into Leyte in October of 1944. MacArthur again chooses the Nashville to be his command ship for this mission. And you can see right here, he's boarding at Hollandia in October 16th, and this is about 11 o'clock in the morning. And here he's shaking hands with the executive officer, Commander Robert Hudson Taylor. And the captain of the ship, Charles E. Coney, is at far left here. The journey was a peaceful one for MacArthur. All the plans were set. It was just a matter of getting there. He strolled the decks frequently, mixed with the officers and crew. He signed cards and short snorters and won the confidence and the respect and pretty much the admiration of the crew. And as he said in his memoirs, the entire journey, there were ships all around them. It was one of the greatest armadas ever assembled. The morning of the 20th, MacArthur was with Captain Coney on the bridge when the shelling began. And it was from the Nashville that MacArthur visited the beaches on the 3 successive days. And it was from the ship that he would command the Leyte operation until about 25 October when he finally took command to the shore. And it was because of that, because MacArthur was on the ship, that the Nashville would not take part in that great battle of Leyte Gulf. But the crucible of the USS Nashville was just about to begin. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces in the MacArthur Memorial, and this is the scale model of the USS Nashville. It was made by crewman Thomas Chiuchi, and he used to live in Norfolk, and he would come here all the time with the reunions and the Nashville Association. He's gone now, but he built this by hand, crafted it himself. It's not a kit. You can see that it bristles with the 15 6-inch guns, the 8 5-inch guns, your 8 anti-aircraft mounts. It had the 2 scout planes, and it really is a striking ship model. In December of 1944, the Nashville took part in the Mindoro invasion, which was going to happen on the 15th of December. Now, en route to Mindoro on the 13th of December, the ship was rounding the coast of Negros. And that's when a kamikaze came out of the sky, and it came through the clouds heading right across the stern of the ship. Now, sailors on the ship saw it and said it was heading right for the superstructure of the ship, and it had a bomb under each wing. The thing is as it came in from the stern, it hit one of the aft guns, one of the wings did, and it cartwheeled into one of these 5-inch guns here. Now, when it cartwheeled into there, one of the bombs under the wing exploded, but the other one pitched across and exploded about 10 feet above the starboard side. And so then you have explosions on both sides of the ship. The gasoline from the plane is all over, and basically amidships just turns into a fireball. There was 133 crewmen killed in that kamikaze attack. There's over 190 that were wounded during that attack. You got to think this is a ship of maybe 500 people. These guys had interacted with each other for years through all their daily activities. That's half of the ship's crew that is either dead or injured, and you would have known many that had died in that. The ship was able to keep underway. It makes its way back to California. When it gets there, they already know what the ship needs to refurbish all these areas, and all the equipment's ready to go. The ship is done and finished and back in Philippine waters by June of 1945. It takes part in the Borneo invasions, but it will never be MacArthur's command ship again. But the bond that had been forged between MacArthur and that ship had been made already. And in 1960, in January 1960, that bond was basically cemented forever. Now, every year on January 26th, they would have MacArthur's birthday, and all the former officers from Southwest Pacific area would gather at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. And they would have this party for MacArthur, and they would celebrate the time in Southwest Pacific area as well as MacArthur's birthday. Now, in 1960, Admiral Thomas Kinkaid came, and he was the 7th Fleet Commander for MacArthur's Southwest Pacific area. And Kinkaid brought a very special gift with him, and this was the former flag of the USS Nashville. And he presented it as a gift, a birthday gift to MacArthur from the U.S. Navy. And MacArthur showed great emotion when he accepted this. And when he died in 1964 and sent all of his collections to the MacArthur Memorial in the city of Norfolk, the flag of the Nashville was in that collection. It is hung in our museum for the past 56 years as one of the mainstays of our collection here at the MacArthur Memorial. We hope you've enjoyed this talk about the USS Nashville, and as always, come visit us at www.macarthurmemorial.org or come visit us in Norfolk. Thank you.
So as you can see, there's a great deal of care being taken to preserve the memory of the ship and the story of the ship. And what we have now, the next set of pictures that we've put together is a copy of the pictures that have been archived here in the Thomas F. OLoughlin Jr. Memorial Library by Deborah Johnson. And thank you, Deborah, for your work doing that. We were able to get the pictures to James Sobel and left them with him. And he has just sent me a Dropbox set of these photographs. So I'm going to offer these to you now for the next set. What these are the stack of photos that came from my dad that we had in the house, you know, for so many years. And I just was able to hang on to them. Most of them at the beginning have to do with what's called the ceremony of the crossing of the international date line, where when you do that for the first time, you have to get hazed in a kind of a ridiculous ceremony. So maybe we'll see some of those slides and then move on through the rest of the deck. I'm really pleased with how well these have come out. It's I think they have quite a good scanner down at the museum. I guess it is, yeah. That could be my dad. I think that's my dad with the army helmet on. I think to see how big he is. I mean, there's not too many guys that big in those days. And now that's definitely him on the right there, wearing the life jacket or whatever that is, just holding a broomstick. All right, and now, Andy, we have the legends for these photographs that are written underneath them on the left there. Can we? I guess I can't see them. Can you? Do you have your voice on? Can you describe what those captions say?
Oh,
I think if people would like to know what the captions are. Deborah knows that my dad's handwriting was absolutely horrible, and it's very hard to read what's on the back of them. But she translated them, and also I think James had took a hand at it too. So we'll see what they wrote for legends underneath these photographs here.
Yeah, this one was the equatorial ritual, the dinner afterwards.
Okay.
And we have Lieutenant Leonard Spanagle.
Okay, that would be Captain Spanagle. He's the captain of the ship. Yeah.
Okay. I think I went the wrong way, actually. Sorry.
Okay.
Another one of Captain Spangle.
Yeah, this is him reading his orders of detachment, and I think my father described that as a sad day, very much attached to Captain Spanagle. This is in the harbor at called Woolloomooloo Harbor in Sydney, Australia, and this is a picture taken from, I guess, the bridge of the ship, looking down at the facilities.
It's actually a great picture.
It really is a great picture. I think they're in the dress blues there. See the white helmets, the white hats, and the dress blues. They must be for getting reviewed or something. There they are.
An up-close shot.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Conley, commander and pilot. You have Sydney official with Captain Coney and Commander Taylor. Party in Sydney. That's why they're all dressed in their blues.
Looks like they found some female companions there.
Joe Mills at the all ship dance in Sydney.
That's the Nashville Ship Band. They actually had a band, and I imagine they were quite good. There's a lot more musicians, especially back then when the big bands were the thing. You see that fellow standing up there with an alto doing a solo.
Yeah, I actually met a gentleman on Mystery Island the other day that played in the Marine military band, and he would always play at the White House and stuff, but he was a clarinet player, so he was telling me a bunch of fun stories. Here we go. We have the Toastmasters. Hollandia.
Okay, now this is Hollandia that was spoken of. This is the first assault at the tip of New Guinea, and it's on the first assault that you saw on those maps earlier. It looks like they've not met too much resistance at this point.
It looks like they're going for a nice swim.
Yeah.
Espiritu, Santo, Thompson, Higgs, Mills, and Smith.
Okay, just a mention of Thompson. Thompson is the man who did the video that we showed the last time I talked about the Nashville. Rufus Buell Thompson on YouTube has a video in which he, in his older version, describes the voyage of the Nashville. So that's worth seeing if you haven't seen it. Amazing picture of, where is this? This is at still in Sydney.
I believe this is in it's after
Oh,
Hollandia.
After Hollandia. Okay.
Then we have torpedo boat with MacArthur aboard approaches the Nashville. Ooh, let's see if we can. You think that's that looks like a MacArthur stance right there, if I've ever seen one.
It's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought that might be a MacArthur. It sure looks like him, doesn't it?
If I was a general on the approaching the boat, that's how I would be standing. Also,
Andy, I think you found him because it looks just like his statue at the memorial.
Oh yeah, you are right. That must be his just general stance. And all the men are waiting for him on the side. That's a great picture too.
It's possible my dad took these pictures, or some of them anyway. We're not real sure, but some of them appear to be maybe a staff photographer, but others, Mr. Zobel thinks that's more likely to have been an individual camera effort.
Here, this one's unlabeled. Just another one of them having a dance.
Yeah.
How often did they have these dances and stuff when they came into port?
Once every war. I think they were pretty rare. Those are the barbers on the ship.
Yeah, we got the barbers enjoying giving everyone their buzzes.
Now, the barbers on the ship will probably have been Filipinos. And this was an interesting arrangement that was made. And after the war in Oxon Hill, where my dad ended up, buying his house and where we grew up, that Oxon Hill also became a haven for Filipino immigrants, many of whom had served with the U.S. Navy during the war, although not officially as sailors.
Here we got
Are they dancing again?
Milne Bay.
Milne Bay.
Dance with Red Cross girls.
Okay.
So they get all the hospital girls that work in the hospital and the guys sailing and have a nice dance. Yost with Barnold of Australia Hotel. He became communications officer for Michner.
For Admiral Michener.
Sorry, my eyes are getting bad.
Oh, that's no problem. It's just fascinating, isn't it? Let's roll on. We've only got a few minutes left.
Got swimming calls for rare.
Yep.
All the boys swimming off the boat. Would you take the jump off the side?
I'd look for sharks first.
Soda fountain stand. We got Hatfield.
He's blowing reveille.
Mm-hmm.
Before they used digital recordings for everything.
Leyte guerrilla leader Ruperto Canglian, October 1944.
Wow. Is that before the landing or after? Probably after. Yeah. So he was up in the hills fighting the Japanese for the whole past 3 years, and here he is meeting with the officers of the Nashville, and I guess those are army officers as well. That's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, he looks pretty happy to be out of the hills. And we have MacArthur in correspondence, October 1944.
Mm-hmm.
We have Sydney again. Commander Corwin there with his lookout on the with the binoculars. We have Red Cross girls dance about the turret. We have back row Wench, Barry, Ernest, Milk, Bouchon, Dubier. Front row Jackson, Bookman, Driver, Linton.
See, they didn't have these pictures before at the MacArthur Memorial, so I trust that at some point perhaps some of these men's descendants may actually recognize them from these pictures that that my dad preserved, and we've now given to the memorial.
The boys look prepared on this one. Guessing that's more of that, them having some fun. We got latte.
Is that what it says, latte?
Yep. Just to zoom in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We got Captain Coney, shipping crew. Got Nashville arrives at Leyte. We got Croton and Leicester. Captain Spanagle. I can't say his name correctly. We got Captain Coney. We got LGEN Sutherland talks with ensign driver Ballinger is behind Sutherland.
This is Lieutenant General Sutherland, one of MacArthur's senior commanders.
We got Red Cross dance at the turret in Milne Bay. That's the time where he was allowed to pull the camera out, apparently. Sydney. Yeah, it's Captain Spinagle, Equatorial or Ritual. We got Tassioban. How do you say that?
I can't see it.
Tacioban.
Oh, this is Tacloban.
Tacloban, or
Yeah,
that's an L. Sorry.
Yeah, Tacloban is near I think it's in Leyte Gulf, and it is where the hospital was, where the wounded were taken. So this would have been when they were going to Tacloban to give their wounded to the hospital there for treatment.
We got Hollandia. You could see are those other ships in the distance, I'm guessing, or?
Yeah, I guess that may be part of the battle going on there.
Yeah, there's some definite smoke going on. We got Equatorial Ritual.
Okay, that looks like one of those. I don't know if I want my belly shaved or not.
I don't want to be that guy.
No.
We got Tassioban again.
Tacloban.
Tacloban. Sorry, my eyesight's getting terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, they're getting greeted by the villagers. We got Espiritu Santo playing some volleyball.
Espiritu Santo is the famous island where South Pacific was written about. The song Bali High, it refers to Espiritu Santo. It's an island where they had a base where they did a lot of repairs for the ships, and they did R&R there. There was also a flight of the Flying Tigers base there, and seems to have been kind of an idyllic respite from the war.
We got Nashville band plays at Milne Bay.
All right.
We got Lenny Ross. No label.
I think that must be part of the ceremony still.
I'm guessing so too. No, there's no label on this one.
Oh, I'm going to have a look at that. That's a gorgeous picture.
That is, I can't tell if that's smoke or clouds though in the distance. We got Gene Tooney.
Gene Tunney was a famous boxer of the era, and I'm not sure if he was on the ship or just visiting the ship, but seems to have been a big occasion.
Is that this guy in the middle, I take it?
I guess it is.
We got the ship hitting some big waves.
Yeah.
Band playing. Or the band. Oop. Them dancing to the band. Them going through the ritual still.
Yeah.
I don't see your dad yet.
No, I don't. I don't think he's in any of these. Maybe it's because he did take the pictures. I
Yeah,
don't-
he's the one taking all the pictures.
Looks like he's looking at some kind of sonar or something. Wow. Need a ride, mister?
I believe that's it, sir. Yep.
Well, we wrapped it up just about 9 o'clock, Andy, and that was a great job. We put it together kind of at the last minute, and there's some other pictures you haven't seen. Of course, I will enjoy putting them together for another time. Thanks for being with us tonight for a special view of the USS Nashville, my dad's ship. He always wanted a picture of that ship to hang in the house, and now we have a whole archive of them. So thanks very much. Appreciate your interest in my dad's career, and especially for the sacrifices that were made by the crew and the officers and the men that made the ship work at the USS Nashville.